The Lighthouse is written and directed by Robert Eggers and features such pulse-pounding moments as Robert Pattinson aggressively masturbating in a shed and Willem Dafoe doing his best pirate impersonation. Is all of this just unbearably uncomfortable, or has Robert Eggers struck gold? The answer is a little of both. The Lighthouse is set in the year 1890. Willem Dafoe plays an old salty sea dog, and Robert Pattinson plays his lighthouse-keeping prodigy. Let me just start off by saying that this movie is fucking weird. Robert Eggers' last film was a film called The Witch, which garnered tons of critical praise, and honestly, at the box office, based on its modest budget, did relatively well. I wasn't a huge fan of that movie myself. I appreciated it for what it was, but pacing-wise, it was kind of all over the place for me. Most of the movie's just really slow. It's all set in kind of old English dialogue, and I don't know, it kind of failed to grip me up until the last half an hour or so of the movie, and then everything kind of goes from 0 to 100, and the movie gets really good. What I will say about The Witch, regardless of how I felt about the story, it was very well executed, and it definitely left you feeling uneasy throughout and kind of uncomfortable. And by the end of the movie, you were kind of left sitting in your seat going, that's no different here. I'm going to try to avoid getting into any pretty big spoilers, but there's a lot of similarities when it comes to The Witch in that regard. The plot is extremely simple. These two men have been assigned to care for this lighthouse. Willem Dafoe plays the character of Thomas Wake with a pirate accent. Raise up yours, you cockheaded! Pattinson plays a young man from off the coast of Maine who's kind of running from his past. That's all I'll say. The film is very loosely based off of an event that happened in 1901 where two lighthouse keepers named Thomas were assigned to care for this lighthouse on a remote island. One of them ended up dying, and then the other one kind of, over the course of his time there, gradually started to go mad. It's loosely based off of that and various other works of fiction with inspiration taken from everything from 18th century paintings to authors of that time period. The movie is absolutely beautiful. Robert Eggers made the decision to film it on 35mm film. The entire thing is black and white, and although it was been largely snubbed from Oscar award season, it did receive a nomination for Best Cinematography, which I think it completely deserves. It's light on story. A lot of the film's kind of disjointed and just very bizarre in a wonderful way. There's so many scenes and questions that are kind of raised in the middle of the movie that you never really get answers to and they don't really come back to. And the ending itself is extremely ambiguous, which honestly I really like about it. I don't think every movie necessarily has to give you all the answers in the world, and sometimes the discussions that these questions spurn can be more interesting than just having a plot where characters go from point A to point B. I'm a firm believer that not every film has to follow a certain structure. You have to necessarily always have extremely fleshed out characters with these rich backstories, and The Lighthouse definitely proves that. About midway through the movie, you do get a little bit more insight into Robert Pattinson's character and his past. However, none of it's extremely fleshed out. Very early on in the movie, it kind of establishes the lighthouse as this enigmatic and mysterious place. You'll see Willem Dafoe's character secluded up the very tippy top of the lighthouse, I don't know what you call it. I'm not a lighthouse guy, but in this room where a lot of flashing lights and weird sounds are kind of emitting from the top of it, there's a mystery surrounding this room. And you as the audience are kind of invested in that mystery. You want to know what's going on up there, and no one is more curious than Ephraim, Robert Pattinson's character. But the highlight of this movie is Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe's performances. Now, I've always thought Robert Pattinson was a great actor. Willem Dafoe is a fucking legend. Everybody knows that. But Robert Pattinson got a lot of criticism for being in the Twilight movies because of those movies and the material he was given to work with.
I've never wanted a human's blood so much in my life.
I trust you.
Don't.
You couldn't really see him shine as an actor and see how talented he was. In recent years, he's just been killing it in the indie scene. And this movie is by far, I think, one of his best performances. He very convincingly plays a man that you think is going insane. You see his skepticism, you understand his weariness of this man, Thomas. It's obvious that Thomas isn't telling Winslow everything. Before takes, Robert Pattinson would beat himself in the face rather aggressively and gag himself. He would shove his fingers down his throat. Robert Eggers said that he would often spin around in circles, and that kind of helped him. I'd imagine during some of the drunk scenes, because there's quite a few, a lot of the evenings in this movie between these two characters are kind of just two men drinking themselves out of this current situation that they're in. Willem Dafoe, on the other hand, is just a swearing, pirate talking, fucking farting, old salty sea dog who says things like, make it shine like a whale's pecker. You can tell he's just so into it and he's loving and he's enjoying every second of it. And he is hilarious to listen to. Some of the lines that he has in this movie, the dialogue in general in this movie is so enthralling. I had to watch the movie with subtitles on because I was afraid I was gonna miss something.
What? What? What?
Obviously, because their accents are a little bit stronger, it's really easy to let a certain line or a certain bit of dialogue go over your head. But I recommend watching this movie with the subtitles on so you can kind of get the full effect. Willem Dafoe actually lived in the fisherman's cottage, which you see during the film. And I guess through the entire course of filming, I don't know exactly how long the shoot was, but he lived there in order to kind of submerge himself in the environment. And obviously that helped his process too. Whatever these guys did, it definitely paid off because it's two of my favorite performances of the year by a mile. And I know I've said this a lot on my channel and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but these guys got screwed out of Oscar nominations. They were both so fucking good and it makes me so mad, but it does get me excited for the Batman. I wasn't one of those little whiny fanboys on the internet that was upset when Robert Pattinson was cast, but I'm even more excited now after seeing him in this film. I think the biggest takeaway is never kill a seabird. The Lighthouse is one of the sleeper hits of this year. Obviously, this is not a mainstream movie. This movie's weird as hell. It's fusing. It's disturbing. But towards the end of the movie, they do a really good job of kind of building tension to where the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, I think, are really intense, which was honestly very kind of similar in structure to what Robert Eggers did in The Witch. And I think it definitely works here. And the last shot of this movie is just, bleh. It'll stick with you. Like, it is so disturbing. After the credits come up, you're kind of just sitting there like, okay. The Lighthouse, definitely check it out if you haven't seen it already, especially if you're kind of on the fence about Robert Pattinson as Batman. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed my review of this movie. I'm going to start doing a rating system here on my channel. Mine will be a 1 to 10 scale system. You'll have 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. So I am going to give The Lighthouse an 8 out of 10, subtracting 2 points for killing a seabird. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to be posting at least one video a week, so this will be my video for this week. I've watched about 16 or 17 movies this month, so definitely no shortage of things to talk about, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys next time.